Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, The Deep Dive, featuring your esteemed hosts, Andy Monitor and Drew Dinzik, powered by BetSperts.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. Week 5, Andy. We got a quarter of the way in the books. Didn't really prep you for this, but it'd be nice to give out some awards through the first quarter of the season.
You know what I was thinking of doing, and we would need to tap into a couple people just because this is it makes a fun graphic, and it's a good one for people to argue about on the internet. But I was going to do the 6 major awards. Who you think, not betting value, not who you want, who you think will win them. I'll do the same, and then we tap on 2 of our favorite NFL guests, like Suma and one other one, and we just and then this is fun when I announce, hey, Dan will make a graphic. Dan doesn't know it's coming up with work for him, but yeah, I think that'd be a fun one to kind of discuss who we think. But we got a few minutes. Let's do awards.
Yeah, actually,
should we do it next week when we have more time?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
because
sure.
There's buys next week.
For sure. Good call. That's a great call. We'll do early
season. And then I'm also the dick move that you just pulled. Didn't prep you for this, but
yeah. All right, all good. Well, let's dive right in then to Thursday Night Football. Week 4 was, a card that we were a little don't really love anything, and kind of the week went that way. Thankfully avoided some catastrophic losses, but basically a little bit of a break-even small loss for me with some of the halftime plays we made. That said, very kind of actually into this week 5 card. But I don't have a bet for this game between the Colts and the Broncos. It's a weird one because these are the 2 bigger underachievers through the first quarter of the season. The Colts even, much more so than the Broncos, their 1 win being very, very suspect against the Chiefs. And the Broncos' 2 wins were ugly. Basically on the back of their defense. This offense has yet to really find its form in any way, shape, or form. Russell Wilson looks pretty bad, and Nathaniel Hackett doesn't really look to have much in terms of control of this offense. Yet they're laying 3.5 because that's how bad things have been for the Colts so far. This total is very low at 42.5. I think this has been pushed down a bit because people are maybe concerned about the Russell Wilson shoulder injury. But if I was going to make any play on this game, I'd probably look for an over because I'm a sicko like that, I guess. Andy, what's your read on this one from a handicap perspective?
I actually played a little bit on the under yesterday because it was 43.5, and that was – I just said, I don't think the injuries are going to go the right way, and this is going to go down. And honestly, if it keeps going, I might just buy out. But the Russell Wilson injury, I think they're just kind of being coy about that. It's a shoulder injury. It's just throwing shoulder. That's horrible. JT is a problem. There's a lot of injury issues for both teams at super important positions. We lost Javonte Williams. Add that to the list of Tim Patrick was an important loss for this season. Now you lose Javonte Williams. You basically have the one running back who only fumbles in important spots. So I worry for the Broncos offense. If Russell is compromised at all, that's going to be a big problem considering now your running game is the one guy who has no confidence in holding onto the ball. I love the Latavius Murray signing, but that guy played in London on Sunday. You think he's going to be ready to go with a new team on a Thursday night? That's a big ask. It's probably going to be Boone as your split, and I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if we get anything out of Matt Ryan. It's been super disappointing. His implementation into this offense. It's been kind of disappointing how a coach we really like in Reich, how he's kind of handled getting this team together. And the injuries have been super rough for the Colts too. We talked about that. How often do you have your best or second best offensive player and defensive player missing the same game right away in the season? These weren't super predictable injuries. It wasn't just like, oh, the guy tore his ACL in week 10. Of course he's going to miss. Or like, Nuke, hey, he's missing the first 6 games. We know these things. Like it's been bad luck compounded with bad decision-making, compounded with bad quarterback play for the Colts. And Broncos are kind of live. I think they've taken some money. This was a flat 3 earlier in the week, correct?
It was. It's been bouncing.
I agree with the move. Yeah.
Yeah, I would make the case for the over here only based on the fact that your defensive injuries, I think, are notable. Both teams missing their most important defensive player, in my opinion, and really just no pass rush to be seen whatsoever from the Colts in this game. Denver's offense, if it doesn't look right at this point, I mean, stick a fork in it. Indy, for what it's worth, the Jonathan Taylor handoff, the running attack so far for them this year has been such a minus that it has put Matt Ryan in an especially bad position. So now maybe if they're throwing a little bit more on early downs because there's no Taylor, maybe
I think that's part of my thesis, though. I don't think the game plan changed because they like Hines. They like Hines enough, right? I think the game plan is similar. It's just I don't think they said, hey, we have this super old quarterback who struggled. Let's make him throw it 50 times. Let's just change the game plan, and because Taylor's missing. Taylor was part of the passing game too, so I think it's similar game plan just with Hines.
Grasping at straws here, but you have Hackett, rookie coach, Thursday Night Football. You have Indy, who I think in the fourth quarter of the Titans game finally showed some liveliness on offense. I don't know. I mean, I get you on a winning bet. We're going to make a play at halftime of this one. So tune into Thursday Night Football halftime stream. Let's move on to Sunday's game, starting with the London game. A second week in a row, we get to kick things off early on Sunday.
This is another one. I bet this on Sunday, if you remember. I got this at 4. I'm gonna have to go look at my pending bets. 42 and a half.
42 and a half. Yeah, 42 and a half.
42 and a half. This was another under. The Daniel Jones stuff is very, very intriguing on this. And I think if you haven't bet this side, and I think this total is probably where it needs to be now, I'm not so sure you want to be firing away at this because it is very curious to what will happen at quarterback. If Daniel Jones can't go, Tyrod Taylor is concussed, like he's in protocol. I don't think he's allowed to go. You could be, the move here is probably Giants if it's a healthy Daniel Jones, just because the Packers offense has, struggled to be anything near prolific. But you could be placing a bet and all of a sudden you're betting on Davis Webb. Like that's not going to feel good once you get to Sunday, but that's not how you want to wake up on Sunday morning. So it's, I'm happy with my position in this under. Our friend over at 4for4, Sam Hoppen, does something called just passing rate over expectation. The Packers are way down compared to last year, and it's a small sample. And it's like the most predictable thing ever. Hey, they were missing a bunch of wide receivers. They have rookie wide receivers. It probably goes up, but I don't think it goes up and just like completely flips on its head. But like, oh my God, this team is passing 60% of the time. I think they're very happy with what they're getting out of their running backs. And even when they do pass, they're passing a lot to the running backs. Like it's going to be an effective but slow plodding kind of offense where maybe big plays aren't a super big part of the repertoire. And I mean, if the Giants are, even if it is Daniel Jones, and I think probably that's the case, but he'll be limited, it'll be a lot of Saquon. So this could be I don't know. I made a good case for the other under.
It's going to look more like a rugby scrum. Is that where you're going? A lot of scrumming in this one. And in general, both running backs are probably the most effective targets for each offense. Absolutely gross. Aaron Jones versus Saquon Barkley. Enjoy London.
What do you think about this as a teaser leg? Taking Packers minus 2.5.
I like it.
Let's just take it complete. Let's pretend the line's 2.5. How often does that cash? What should that juice be? Does that cash like 80% of the time?
78, 80,
yeah.
Especially if Jones trots out there limited or the potential of a Webb. even the potential of a Webb in game, which is real, much like Tua going out was a real possibility last week. Jones ultimately getting knocked out of this game is a real possibility. So, yeah, Packers 78, 80%. That's a very solid teaser leg.
Yeah, and again, a teaser leg, if you can get it at -110, you need to hit them about 73%. So anything above that makes it probably a positive EV teaser leg. I can't seem to get the second half of a teaser home lately, but I'm going to likely use
We'll
this.
Get one this week, man.
I know. I'm likely going to use
get
this
one,
in some teasers.
Okay. Let's talk about the 1 o'clock slate, starting with Seattle at New Orleans. Seattle playing in the 1 o'clock slate for the second straight week, playing on the road for the second straight week. It would be, in general, a spooky, bad, scary spot for Seattle, second week of travel. But they actually have the travel advantage here because New Orleans has traveled more going to and from London. And so Seattle in a pretty decent spot right here. I sold this one down to Seattle plus 4.5 to get a better price. I think Seattle ought to be 3.5 is my fare. And really, I'm just counting on the fact that what we've seen from Geno Smith and really this offense overall is not a mirage. This is going to be a tougher test for them than we have seen from them the last 2 weeks. But the fact that we are 4 weeks into this season and Geno Smith is the best quarterback in the NFC is amazing. But he has a good infrastructure around him. The wide receivers on that team are great. The running back is performing well. The scheme is working, and it fits. It's perfect synergy with what Geno Smith is good at doing. So I think the Shaden Waldron and Geno Smith success story carries through the first half of the season. It is not going to get derailed by a tired Saints team. I do think that there is a motivational letdown here for the Saints potentially because they left kind of everything out there on the field and they got an A+ performance out of Andy Dalton, and it did not matter against the Minnesota Vikings in London. So all signs point to Seahawks for me in this one. And I tickled a little Seahawks 40-1 to win the NFC West this week.
I know. I tried to talk you out of it.
Let's have a good. Well, we can have a good laugh about that halfway through the season if it's just totally effed. But for now, at least, I'm kind of excited about it.
I'm kind of with it. Like, it's worth a punt because we're 4 games in. They're 2-2, and probably it doesn't matter what the priors were. Nobody should probably be 40-1. Like it happens, 1% of it happens likely. Like it's likely an even bet. Like it's about the right number, honestly, but it would be a fun one to catch. It's just a good one to have in your pocket. I said, what the Niners were able to do versus the Rams, the Seahawks don't have the safeties nor the pass rush to do that. They've already lost to the Niners. I mean the Rams, they don't match up good against stopping that Rams offense. They will get beat over the top by the Rams offense. And obviously they already lost the Niners. I think if they beat the Cardinals twice, you're probably live. But it's tough. You'd have to steal one of those games. Their
first chance is home versus the Cardinals next week, where the look ahead has them 2.5-point dogs.
Yeah,
the Cardinals.
They'd need to go 3-3 in division to have a chance. But 40-1's a big number. And then all of a sudden who's the backup quarterback in LA?
Oh man, is it Wolford?
It might be Wolford. Yeah, I mean you're talking hey, here's an offensive line that's beat to shit with a third string safety or third string center. 40-1 ticket is kind of like betting on maybe Stafford gets hurt too, and Jimmy
Stafford
G isn't.
Jimmy G are both of them are fragile.
Yeah, he's already got a bum elbow. So
and you know who else is fragile?
Funny, I'm talking this.
You know who else is fragile? Kyler Murray. Fragile.
Kyler Murray's been hurt every year.
All 3 quarterbacks in your division are fragile, and you were 40-1 to win your division.
I don't know much about Geno's history, but he's the most resilient quarterback, we'll call him, in the division. And I mean, I agree with you on the Saints. I'm probably going to bet the Seahawks plus the points here. I have it 4 is what I think the number should be. I almost want to wait and see if we can get Jameis in because I think it's a minus right now. I still think he's not 100%. I think they're going to force him in. That's the other thing too about the Giants game. The Packers pass rush isn't bad. It's a pass rush. They're of all the, hey, we should rush them. Do they think they're a contender? Like, why would they rush a quarterback? I guess the reason to rush a quarterback back in is because your backup quarterback is also concussed and it really gets stinky after there, but it stinks to have to rush him back in. So if Jameis gets rushed back here, and I think it's probably smarter to just use probably a top 5 backup. He looked very good against Minnesota. This is Minnesota defense. It's probably on par, if not better than Seattle. Like, I think Andy Dalton's your best chance, and the Saints deserve better. They probably deserve to win. That defense played pretty good for good chunks of the game. Justin Jefferson's an animal. What are you going to do? It was a weird travel spot. I think the Saints are more like a 2-2 team than a 1-3 team. That said, it's too many points in a really, really negative travel spot. Coming back from London, not taking the bye. We'll see. Kamara. The Kamara news is also super important to this. I don't know. I'm waiting, but I will likely bet some Seahawks.
All right, we agree. Another game that I played, I'm not sure you came along for the ride. I took the over in Houston Texans at the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the case is pretty straightforward. Jags can get to 40 here. Texans can get to 3.5. So this should go over the total of 43.5. Realistically, though, I like the Jaguars' offensive scheme to bounce back after a tough week with all those fumbles and in that nasty weather. And the Texans can score some garbage time points here. Jaguars' defense, young, a little bit vulnerable, particularly at the in the second level. If the Texans can get anything going to Cooks, anything going with Dameon Pierce, this could be a competitive game. I don't love the Jaguars as a side here just because they are asked to lay 7, and it is a team that still has a lot of growing and learning to do. And they may have given you their best couple of weeks of football the last couple of weeks. So I still think the Jaguars are the best team in the AFC South. I'm just going to sit pat on my Jaguars, South tickets, Super Bowl, AFC tickets, and hope that they get this one done at any price. But the over is a bet for me, largely because I think the Jaguars can score. Realistically, they can get to 30 points here, and I think the Texans can get to 14 or 17. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're making a case for my bet. I did lay the Jaguars -7. I got it at a low vig price. It was like -106. You're kind of saying the things that would lead to a Jaguars cover. I'm not sure if this happens, how often this happens where a team plays a top 2 team in the NFL and then comes home off a loss and gets to play a bottom 2 team. Like, talk about a nice buy low spot. I don't know. And also too, like, I get what you're saying. That might've been like, hey, these are their 2 best. They gave us our best shots. I don't know if last week was their best shot. It was for 10 minutes, but they also turned the ball over 5 times. Like, that is an incredible defense to go against. And again, when we get to the Eagles, I'll touch on this, but super impressed with what the Eagles were able to do, because they hadn't had a game where they had any sort of trials nor tribulations. They're just up like 24-0 like that every game. And, the Lions did some backdooring, but that was really never in danger until the very end. So, it was nice to see the Eagles were capable of that. And it was good to get punched in the mouth, I think, long-term for the Philadelphia Eagles. That said, the Jags defense, young but good. Go look at the Rookie of the Year market. 2 of the top 3, I think, are Jaguars. On the defensive side, they have some pieces, and this is a massive step down to this offense. Dameon Pierce had a nice run. I don't know if that's going to continue against this defense. I don't think Mills is going to be the long-term answer down there, despite his obviously performing better than we thought he would where he was drafted. The fact that he's still starting in the league for an NFL team is kind of wild. So it's a bad matchup on the road. Jags at home. I make this like 8.5, like mostly because I've upgraded the offense and the defense. I like it at 7, especially where I got it at a cheap price. And I think I'm right with you there. I'm almost worried about the garbage time points not coming. That's where I tend to agree with the over, because I have the Jaguars scoring and kind of I can't remember what I looked at, but I had maybe it was the defensive red zone efficiency for the Texans, and I went back to last year as well. Like, I think if the Jaguars move the ball, we're seeing a lot more 7s and 3, and that leads to them getting to like 31, 35 points. And more often than not, I don't have the Texans getting to 24, 28. I think the Texans getting to 14 to 20 points would be pretty stellar for them here. They did, comport themselves well against a beat-up defense there and the Chargers, I guess. So maybe give them a little bit of kudos there. But this is a road game in Duval. I mean, everyone's going to have their Bortles jerseys on, kind of a celebration of life for him. So, yeah, I like the -7 here.
Yeah,
the boat.
Yeah, both.
Like he died.
Yeah, Jags have been on the road for 2 weeks. They get to come home finally. Yeah, you should see a pretty solid performance. Just win, guys.
It'd be great if they just scored 48.
If they just
neither of us would have to worry.
Would love that. A game that I am going to steer clear of here is Pittsburgh at Buffalo. The Buffalo Bills land 2 touchdowns, and rightfully so. They're amazing, and the Steelers are trash. The Steelers, however, do have a new quarterback, a little bit of unexpected question marks swirling about how good this kid's going to be. He does have a little bit of chemistry with the wide receiving corps, particularly his fellow rookie George Pickens. But really, the idea that Pickett is going to be thrown into the fire here against the best team in the NFL for his first ever career start is kind of insane. And if he ultimately kind of grows from this and develops into a good quarterback, then we can look at what Mike Tomlin did and make some sense out of it. But as we sit here today, it makes no sense. And
yeah, hashtag Mike Tomlin surprised face.
Yeah,
I really, really hated how they handled this. I think everybody kind of knew that it was going to be a thing eventually. Like Mitch Trubisky was never going to be your long-term answer, and you drafted the first quarterback off the board. Of course, you're going to at least give him a shot. So you had the opportunity, the long prep week to get him ready, start him, and they throw him in mid-game, and he throws 3 picks. I think that's kind of his lot in life. He's going to be a little feast or famine. That's where I like this total. I think this total's a little low. But I'm very worried about the high variance play of one Kenny. I wish I knew his middle name. I would say Kenneth Robertson Caruso Pickett. I don't know his middle name, but like
Robinson Caruso sounds right.
It sounds right. I just worry about a quarterback who's a little loosey goosey with the ball like that. It can really swing a total hard one way or the other. It's either, hey, he just threw a pick 6. That's super good for the total because he now gets the ball again. Immediately somebody has the ball and are driving, or he can throw a bunch of end zone picks. Like, hey, they finally moved the ball. Oh, he threw a pick in the end zone. Like that was an 8-minute drive that gave us no points. So I think this total's a little low. The Bills do tend to pile on, especially against a defense they can exploit with. I think Hayward's still a little dinged up. Obviously, Watt's done, and now Minka is hurt. Like your best 3 pieces are hurt or gone. Like they could really throttle. They could really throttle this team. And
you know why I didn't play? You know why I didn't play the over? Because I agree with you. All your points, it should be a little higher. A Buffalo Bills game in the total of 46.5 when they can score that themselves on any given day is a head scratcher. But decent chance the Bills put away the good plays.
That's a good point too. Like there's no sense showing your playbook to the other powers in the AFC versus a fucking struggling Steelers team with
especially when you're playing one of those powers next week.
Yeah. And the other thing too is if Pickett plays okay, we're still a little dinged up in that secondary for Buffalo. So that's positive for the Steelers. They're not a horrible team. I don't have them as some bottom 5 team. They're going to lose a lot of games now because they have a rookie quarterback. But just we'll see. I'll see where those turnovers are.
Yeah, let's talk about another kind of lopsided market here where everyone and their mother expects Tampa Bay to bounce back, even though they're taking on the plucky Falcons. Andy, what team is 4-0 against the spread this season? There's only one in all of the NFL. It is Atlanta. Atlanta Falcons are the only team that have covered every single week. They're amazingly 2-2. It could probably be 3-1 if week 1 bounces their way and they keep the Saints, from coming back on them. They're 3-1. Now, true accuracy would tell you that they should have lost last week. So maybe 2-2 is a fair record for these guys.
Real quick, too, buried the lead a little, and we'll get to this in the Monday night game when we 2-2, like Kansas City, Buffalo next week. That kind of plays into the same point of like, why would they waste the good plays on Pittsburgh?
That was the whole point.
Thanks. Yeah. Thank you, the half, and thank you, the half for. It got there in a funny way. San Francisco over 9.5, never in doubt.
A defensive touchdown was part of the handicap. The Niners have the next Troy Polamalu. We've said it all freaking offseason. This is the 20th time we brought it up. I don't know how many more times we have to tell you. That guy is going to score defensive touchdowns. Anyway, speaking of defensive touchdowns, I played the under here, and that's the one thing I'm a little worried about. I think the Buccaneers defense is going to come out with a little bit of an axe to grind. I think they match up exceptionally well against what the Falcons are trying to do right now on offense. If you had to tell me that the Buccaneers are going to hold the Falcons to under 10 points, that sounds perfectly reasonable to me. This is Buccaneers or pass, under or pass. I played the under. I think it should be around 47. And ultimately, Tampa's offense may get right eventually. But I still think that they're going to need a lot of weeks of, finding some chemistry. Still a lot of questions about who's going to be available and how effective those players are going to be. It is, even at full strength, very one-dimensional. They have no semblance of a running game. And so, the fact that, there are a couple of decent players in the secondary for the Falcons, maybe this is a tighter game than the market thinks, but ultimately Buccaneers is the teaser leg is fair in my mind. Under is the better angle, though, and 48.5 is about a point and a half too high.
If you can get a decent, 24? I'm guessing there's some 23.5 for first half. I like the first half under a little better.
Ooh.
I do. I think maybe if you have some under, maybe adding a little of that to get some easy money. It does feel like if anything that gets moving for Atlanta, it is some garbage because they are plucky, and plucky teams score late in garbage time. I don't know how many points the Bucs are going to be able to put up. Like you said, it's a good, not great, good secondary, good pieces for Atlanta. Other parts of that defense leave us wanting, but obviously we know what we're getting into with this team. They have a lot of roster reconstruction to do over the next couple of years. But the Bucs I still have the Bucs as an elite defense. And even, the 85 Bears, the 01, was it 01 or 00 Ravens? That was crazy. Like, you remember those teams? Like, those teams are all gonna struggle when Patrick Mahomes is doing things out of the fucking matrix.
Plus
where he stopped and the rusher just went past him and then spin move, flip over the top. I don't know. I don't know how people are going to stop that ever. He does things that just are indefensible. Travis Kelce, things that does, and maybe Pitts gets there someday, but they're lack of wanting to use Pitts apparently is not going to get him to Kelce levels. So the fact that you have Kelce across or up the middle on that seam route and Mahomes doing what he does, it makes it so hard to grade, were the Buccaneers worse than I thought on defense? It's no, fuck. That team just, they really brought the good playbook out, and Mahomes just had a couple of magical plays.
Yeah.
I still think it's very good defense. I agree with this under.
I got more excuses to make here. I think the Bucs would like a redo in terms of the way they schemed that game in particular. They played outside of their comfort zone. They played a lot of cover two. They played a lot of zone. That's the way you used to. That's the way you used to play defense against Pat Mahomes when he had Tyreek Hill on the field. Realistically,
it's a different offense now.
If they had stuck to their bones, what they're good at. Todd Bowles, his plan A, which is leave your cover corners on an island, make them play man and get aggressive. I think that's a different outcome. So I think anyway, I think they match.
That's fair. They did get a little cute. It didn't work out. Dan,
didn't work.
Producer, brings up a good point. Pitts did miss some practice. He's a little dinged up. And they had success. They had success even with Cordarrelle out. They do have just a decent run scheme. But him missing will matter. It's not just going to be. It's not plug and play.
Which one of our online friends had the brilliant comment today of maybe Pitts is just going to act, practice like he plays, just missing in action, completely missing in action. I can't remember who had that joke today.
Yeah, somebody pointed out. That's the thing too, man. If you're in a fantasy league where you have to start a tight end and you drafted him high, you're so fucked. Like you either need him to have one crazy game so you can trade him, or you need him to just be injured so you stop starting him because you can't bench him.
It's especially salt in the wound watching Travis Kelce every week and watching Mark Andrews. Those two guys are just raking right now, and your guy is doing nothing.
Here's a good question from the chat. How do you handicap a locker room coming together for the quarterback after he picked him over the hottest chick in the world? I don't know if she's the hottest, but she is up there. And the fact that Brady chose football over a supermodel does crack me up. Who knows what's real in those reports, but Bachelor Brady, did you see him at the Super Bowl parade where he got messy? I am a little, eventually I'm worried if he turns into like, hey, I'm single dad Brady and I can go party now.
Because his legs are going to be tired. His legs are going to be tired
liquor
after spending the weekend out. No, it's a funny ass point. And I guess it does show you he is very committed to this team in this season, if nothing else. Maybe that kind of gives you some more confidence to back the Buccaneers in the long-term future market. Because as we've always talked about, this defense is elite. Tom Brady is going to be the best quarterback in the NFC in the playoffs. Do not overthink it. You can decide when you want to buy low on this team. But, by the way, go look at their schedule the next 3 weeks. Andy, do you have it handy by any chance?
I
believe it's Buccaneers, Panthers, and then I believe it's Falcons, Panthers, Steelers. Is that right?
Yeah. This is the spot. I talked about this with someone yesterday. I did add some – I should tweet this shit out when I do it, but I did add some. I did add some Tampa Bay Super Bowl, Tampa Bay NFC.
I think now
it is like looking at the schedule, coming off a bad loss. Like this is probably the buy spot because they're only going to get healthier. Hopefully,
it is a top 3 defense in the NFL. Period. It is going to be a top 5 offense in the playoffs because of Brady alone. What else do you want me to tell you?
Yeah, just the experience.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Chicago Mini. Did you play this?
The travel angle that we have in New Orleans, same thing. Minnesota coming back from London, tough game, got the win somehow. I know my wife sent me a picture of her friend, and I know these people. It's just some folks from work. And they had got no, it's a friend from back home. This doesn't matter. Either way, she sent me a picture of her friend and the couple, and they'd gone to London. And I'm like, shit, Vikings are losing. Can you imagine like flying to go to this game and watching your team lose? Like that would just be such a bummer. Like you want to go on the big Ferris wheel? No.
No.
I'm sad. My Vikings.
You want to go to this circus place? No. Not even.
Yeah, so the play is probably Bears +7, but I can't pull the trigger on that. This is a pretty fraudulent 2-2 team. They're not throwing the ball because they don't trust their quarterback because they don't have receivers. They don't have much for offensive line put together. And that's the thing too. If you go look at pressure rates for Minnesota, they're not great. But go look at who they played. Tell me where you'd rank these offensive lines. Just say top 10, top 15, top 20. Detroit.
Top 5.
Top 5. Philly.
Top 1.
Yeah, I mean, even New Orleans, and they've lost some pieces. 10. It's still a top 10 of Danielle Hunter has gone up against some elite tackles. I mean, big name tackles. So if you go look at the two things that don't match up.
He's due, Andy.
It is
Viking sacks over might be
that's a fun prop. It is an okay pass rush that has gone up against some not good, great, elite offensive lines. Danielle Hunter's going to get going eventually once he plays. I don't know, get to play Chicago or Pittsburgh or somebody with a bad offensive line, a quarterback who's not experienced, who doesn't have receivers getting separation. Minnesota gets after Fields, probably covers this number. It's a lot of points for me to lay with a team whose offense has been this disappointing. Yeah,
I agree.
It's tough. It's tough to bet the Minnesota. And also Minnesota with the tough travel angle, coming off London, not getting the bye. So it's a pass for me. And truthfully, the under probably deserves a look.
I agree. If the Vikings cover, it's because their defense absolutely smothers the Bears, maybe gets a defensive, a couple of turnovers. And this is a 23-7 kind of a game, or 24-7 kind of a game. 24.
Yeah, not a true Wong, but this is a teaser I like.
It's a good leg. I think we kind of. I've made this point other places, but haven't talked to you about it. I think the Vikings win the North, and I think they're probably your 2 seed.
What do you make this pure numbers? Like, if your power rankings, taking situational stuff aside, like I make it like 8. Yeah. So I mean, it should be a play. It's
but
sitting on
the Vikings,
number, but
the Vikings aren't
travel really fucks with
me.
Me.
Situationally is not good, and even though it's against the Bears, the Vikings I think are a team that's just going to win ugly all year. Like they're going to play closer margins than they ought to all freaking year, but they're going to compile wins.
Like our guy Brad.
They're playing on Thanksgiving night against the Vikings. I mean against the Patriots. I bet you we handicapped that game, and at the time the Vikings might be like 11-1, 10-1 or something, and we're going to be like, this team can't cover. They're winning by 3 points every game, yet they're in the driver's seat for the 2 seed, maybe the 1 seed. Like that kind of feels like how it's going to go.
They'll be like 9-2, and they'll be like 3-8 versus the spread.
That's kind of the way it feels. Yeah. And honestly, like this, it's been covered as nauseum. If you didn't already know, the Eagles have by far the easiest schedule remaining of any NFL team. It's almost laughable, right? You know what number 2 is? Yes, it's true. It's the Vikings.
Yeah, the Vikings.
It's the Vikings. I think that's your 1 and 2 seed in the NFC, just based on strength of schedule. I don't know what to tell you. Plus the fact that one has 4 wins and one has 3 already. Like that's where we're at. That's where this season is headed. Bucks probably land 3, and then whoever emerges from the NFC West, the Seattle Seahawks or whoever, gets the 4 seed.
Yeah, and this is one I'll probably live bet. Like if Minnesota is taking advantage of, the cornerbacks here, if they're able to just constantly get stuff underneath with the 2 guys that aren't Justin Jefferson, and Jefferson's able to get involved, the run game looks a little better, there might just be some, all right, I don't care if that was the first drive and it was probably scripted, Minnesota might score 30 here. That's why I'm a little scared off of this. It was good. Like when they needed to be good against Detroit, it was good. When they needed points against New Orleans, the offense was good. It's not good for the sake of like, hey, let's build up a lead.
Agree with all that. Let's move on to Tennessee at Washington. This is a game I want no business betting either way. The side doesn't make sense to me. I don't think this should be anyone favored. The total is wildly low considering you have 2 pretty suspect defenses on the field. This is also a funny game because both of these teams should probably bench their starting quarterbacks just for where they are as a franchise right now and see what they have in terms of a rookie. That said, the Commanders apparently aren't quitting on the season just yet because they're going to trot Wentz out one more time. And the Titans are not as good as they showed you against the Colts last week. They are still a very, very suspect favorite on the road here. No bet for me on this one. And realistically, I kind of hope this is a tie game.
Yeah, I have the Titans like a point or 2 better than the Commanders. And they're on the road. They shouldn't be favored. Like I honestly, I have a decent sized swing of value if I just use my raw power numbers. But at the same time, are you going to want to go watch that offense last week? Like, are you going to want to take the money line or even the 2.5 point? Like, this is the one time where I looked at it. I'm like, all right, I should bet the Commanders money line. And I sat and, I will never bet a plus 2.5. I'll just always take the money line. And I thought about it. I'm like, man, in this spot, I kind of want to take the 2.5. Like, I'm worried about this team and just an ugly, close scoring game. Fady or Fadi, I don't know how to say it right. I'm terrible with names unless it's JetBlue. That's an easy one. But he's correct. It is a Wong teaser if you want to take the Commanders plus 8.5. It's not my favorite leg, but with a low total at home versus a very fraudulent Titans team who's now missing their rookie wide receiver who was starting to be part of this offense. It's worth a swing. Commanders starting to get a little healthier, but this is still not my favorite teaser leg. I lean Commanders, but in no way, shape, or form can I back Wentz, especially now that we're hearing some. You're not the only person I heard that from, too. There there are some whispers of they're losing faith in Wentz. I think that's more of a Ron Rivera needs to save his job kind of thing, or like, hey, this is Wentz's fault. I didn't really want him, or something like.
I think it's coming.
You misheard me.
I think it's coming from Scott Turner because Scott Turner has a pulse.
Yeah, Scott Turner actually of all the nepotism hires that we've ever had, Scott Turner may turn out to be one of the decent ones.
If he eventually leaves the Commanders, I would pick him up and give him a retry next year as an offensive coordinator for sure.
And that's where too I'm worried about. While it may be an upgrade long term, I'm worried about betting on a team and then having them switch quarterbacks mid game. That's not something I want to have in my pocket when I'm betting even a live home underdog like this. So pass. And that brings us to the halfway point. There's over 100 people watching this live. If you could all do me a solid, hit the thumbs up on the YouTube. More thumbs up is always good for the algorithm. That helps us. And I will tell you that this week's show is brought to you by No House Advantage. That is a playing and pick'em contests app on your phone. You can download it at nohouseadvantage.com or just on the App Store like a normal person. You have an App Store on your Apple. You have an App Store on your Android. Go download it. Use promo code BetSperts for a first deposit match up to $25. They have NFL, NBA coming right up. MLB, I'm sure they'll have playoffs. PGA down in Vegas this week. MMA and NASCAR. You can win up to $250,000 or more by picking some player props. Download it today, support the show, and with that, we'll hit the second half of the slate here. This is our last big slate for a while. Bye week start. I think they do start next week in week 6. Used to have week 4 buys when we had the normal 16-game slate. Now they get pushed back a little bit, but last big slate, and we'll head to the Big Apple. Not really. We'll head to northern New Jersey, truthfully, for the New York Jets hosting what's almost certainly going to be Teddy Bridgewater for a few weeks here.
Yeah. What's your adjustment from Tua to Teddy?
Not a lot.
Yeah,
because
you can't adjust Miami up that much, right?
Well, not only that, I think it's if you just took Tua and Teddy on, like, let's just say average NFL team who has the most modal wide receivers, the most average everything, I think it's, there's a decent step down, even though he is a good backup. He started plenty of games. He filled in numerous times down in New Orleans and really did a good job. He's absolutely just excellent at stepping in like this. But and it showed it last week. You have wide receivers who are like quarterback proof somehow. And not only, I feel like I've harped on this all summer when we talked about Miami in the preview shows, when we talked about just in general what I thought of the move. But Tyreek Hill, again, we think about him as this deep threat, but he is still just so dangerous with screen passes, short, little, just get the ball in his hands, get him out in space. Like, Teddy's perfect for that. Like, Tyreek Hill can have very good game. Tyreek Hill could lead the league in receiving any given week just because he's Tyreek Hill. And he can do this with Teddy Bridgewater because it doesn't take long bombs for him to score. It doesn't take long bombs for him to have 75-yard plays. He can just move with the ball in his hands. They have, honestly, 2 receivers who can do that. And it's a well-coached team. I like the defense. I like everything about this team. And outside of the one drive with the run and the gritty, it wasn't the most impressive win by the Jets last week. I mean, part of that was, how much are we going to attribute that to turnovers?
I would say 100%.
Almost all of it. Like, even last week, if they don't have
the true grade of that game, Pittsburgh should have won by double digits.
Yeah, no, I mean, just if you go yardage and stuff, and just if you constantly turn the ball over, you're going to lose to teams, even the Jets. If Miami takes care of the ball, they should win this by 10. Even on the road, I make this with Teddy. I make this like 5. I mean, it's still the Jets. They still are missing important pieces in basically all 3 levels of the defense. and they can be super exposed by a good team. I don't know if the Dolphins are this great team yet, even with Tua back, but they have enough pieces to go beat bad teams and beat them by margin. This offense is going to be just fine this week. I laid the 3.
I sold the 3.5. I agree with you in every way, shape, and form.
Yeah.
The downgrade from Tua to Teddy is somewhere between neutral and small. It is not large. The upgrade from Flacco to Wilson is somewhere between neutral to negative. Okay? And here's what's wild. The Dolphins, the Ravens, and the Bengals, in my mind, not much separation between those 3 teams in terms of how you would power rate them. Even in terms of the skill, talent, just in general, like Miami and Cincinnati is almost Spider-Man meme, right? Like they are really, really similar. Like one has a better coach, one has a little more experience, but they are really close. The fact
and
that
Waddle's groin probably is a little concerning, but it's still Wednesday. I think he plays. Not 100% sure on Armstead.
No, so the thing that I don't get is Baltimore went into New York as 6-point favorites, won convincingly, runaway win. Cincinnati went into New York as 6-point favorites, won convincingly, runaway cover. Why in the world is there not more respect in the market for Miami in this spot?
Well, no, let's go to the other side. What is your upgrade from Flacco to Wilson?
So I'm saying it is somewhere between neutral to negative.
Yeah.
It's not an upgrade.
I haven't seen like a game yet where I've been impressed with him yet.
Here's the other thing about Wilson. If you ask him to throw into the zone coverage and into, just give him a play where they're creating space and they're creating separation for the wide receiver. They're running a guy into space. Wilson can make those passes and he can make them look good, particularly over the middle of the field. Okay. Where he really, really struggles is when he's facing man coverage and when he's going up against some elite secondary, particularly safety play. And that is exactly what Miami likes to do. So they can basically run a little bit of a blitz-heavy scheme, a lot of man coverage, let their safeties dictate, and they should get all kinds of disruptive plays in this one. There should be havoc plays, there should be turnovers. This literally should... Like the Miami offense really shouldn't have to lift much of a finger.
And that's the thing. I'm glad you touched on that because most of my handicap was the offense is going to be fine. Yeah, this defense is a big step up from what the Jets played last week too. Like
Miami's defense is rated poorly right now because they have played Josh Allen. Because they've played Lamar Jackson and because they played Joe Burrow. And by the way, they played Joe Burrow in an absolutely hellacious spot. 4 days off of a 90-snap performance. Yeah. Like now they get 10 days to rest and prepare for Zach Wilson. I think they're going to be just fine. This has like 31-3 written all over it in my mind.
Yeah, we haven't even mentioned the extra prep. Like if you ever needed hey, I could use 2 days extra prep, it's when you're starting a different quarterback. I think McDaniel's going to be fine with this. And
if you needed like 3 days extra rest, if you needed like a mini bye, when a good time to get one is after a short week when you've had coming off of a week you played in the heat 90 snaps. Like this is a really nice spot for the Dolphins in my opinion. On top of being a good matchup, everything about this one sings Dolphins cover. So laying the points with the fish.
Happy with my 3. Chargers, Cleveland. I
bet
this
Dewey on the total here.
It moved up on Sunday. I tried to click 48. It went 48.5. I took it anyway. It went up past that. It kept going 49.5, I believe, and then it dropped like a goddamn rock to 47. I still don't understand 2 really poor run defenses. Versus, the Browns, who should absolutely be able to run. They're determined to run, and it's working. And the Chargers offense, despite some injuries, it was a bad team, but they composed themselves well. And this is a run defense they can beat. Garrett practiced today. I'd like him out for this total, but it's still.
Actually, Andy, let me ask you: has there been any recent example of how these teams would match up with each other? Do we have anything to go on?
I do remember one primetime game from I don't know how long. It wasn't that long ago, but yeah, I do recall that. God, that was fun. If we could get that, I would just be tickled pink. Because it not only did the market move again, I love it when you win, when the market is a little bit against you on certain things. I don't know. Maybe this comes back up. Maybe it was a bit of a head fake, but I don't know. Maybe somebody in the chat can make a case for the under. I would love to hear it. I'd love to hear all sides of this.
Honestly, I assume we got the weather dead wrong. That was my only assumption. Like, I guess
exactly. I went and ran. I ran to the Google machine, looked up the weather. I expect to see 40-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah, right.
It looks like it's going to be pretty nice in the Midwest on Sunday.
Yeah, and I mean, Herbert is getting better. The replacement player they got for Slater,
Storm Norton.
He is about 10 Storm Nortons in terms of quality. Like that guy, and that was a Georgia rookie, the guy they drafted in the 6th round. Very, very good find for them in terms of kind of patching up what was going to be a potentially, Achilles heel. The other thing that is like the Chargers offense has not looked great when they have not been able to get the running game going, but now they're facing a really poor run defense.
Yes.
And so they're going to have perfectly complementary football in this game. Like, honestly, the Chargers should get to 30 without much of a sweat. I'm only really worried if the Browns somehow keep stubbing their toes in the red zone like they did against the Falcons. Like, if the Browns take the points off the board themselves, then this is going to be a difficult, over to hit. Chargers look like a good bet to me at 2.5. Over is still a good bet in my opinion at 47.5. Jacoby Brissett and the Browns have played 4 of the worst teams in football through 4 weeks, and they're 2-2. Like, this is not a good football team right now. Kevin Stefanski is still calling good offense, though. He is really calling some decent plays. I'm just not sure. Like, I guess but this thing is like,
I was happy with the play calling for the Chargers last week, especially in the first half.
I was too.
And I watched that game without action because I wanted to see Herbert. I wanted to see how he looked progressing through the injury. I don't know where Anthony's fighting. I'm seeing more like 10 to 15 tops. And again, that's kind of just standard in Cleveland. You're on a lake, right there by the lake. I'm not seeing like super heavy wind. And somebody brought this up. A.J. Donaldson, heavy run teams that might get 10 yards per carry. That's the thing. Like, running isn't always a bad thing if you're knocking out 8 to 10 yards a carry and you're just marching down the field. It's like, that was an 8-play drive where they didn't throw the ball and it took 4 minutes and they scored.
Dude, in this matchup last year, they had breakaway runs that were like 70 yards. Like 70-yard touchdown, you know what that's good for, Andy? An over. Like, really, truly. I really don't understand this total movement.
Yeah, and this is another 2.5 at home. People are bringing up the teaser leg. It's a good teaser leg, not great, because I do lean to the over. I think this game is full of variance, and I think the Browns are not nearly as good as the record indicates, and they're only 500. So,
yeah,
I do worry about this teaser leg too. Washington and Cleveland, I might just put those together and be like, this is my icky teaser.
Oh, that's
not the icky shuffle.
Yeah. One of our buddies just texted me, Levis might be out for Kentucky.
There goes. I'm guessing I'll get that text here in a second. You're higher on the list. Detroit at New England. Sometimes
no opinion. Detroit at New England, excuse me.
Mac Jones practiced a little. I
don't think he plays
because it was a bad ankle injury, but the fact that he's progressing that fast makes me think he'll be back sooner than later. The Patriots are 1-3. They're in a division with Miami and Buffalo. And if you believe Mac Jones is even remotely part of your future plans, what are you doing rushing him back, even against a bad defense? I mean, it's still, there's some decent pass rushers on this defense. Why in the world would you rush him back unless you don't give a shit about him long term? I really don't expect him to play. I don't want any part of this game because I have quarterback uncertainty on one side versus maybe it doesn't matter because the Lions defense may be kind of historically bad, just as they're still rebuilding and filling in the blanks there. It's given up a ton of points. It's scored a lot of points. and despite what we've done at offensive coordinator, just muddling that all up with the rehirings, essentially, it's still Belichick, and it's still a good game planning team. Like, they're not dumb. We can sit here and tell you how to beat the Lions. Like, if you want Goff to not continue to play, I mean, Goff has been very good, even against some okay defenses. Like, the game plan is treat the Lions like you treated Mahomes a few years ago. Like, oh, we're just going to play ball control. We're not going to give them the ball. I don't care if we can beat this defense for big plays. Why would we try the big plays when we can also just beat them constantly for like little 6-yard gains? We can run the ball effectively against them. Let's make these drives take a long time, keep that offense off the field so we don't have to try to score 35 points with this backup quarterback or dinged up quarterback. Like, it is probably a ball control game. So I worry about the people that are just running to the window to bet Lions overs no matter what. And this total is dropped for that. I think that reason, because I think that's the kind of game you get on the road. Tough place to play. It's not winter yet, but this is how many outdoor games have the Lions had, Drew? 0. First time taking this offense outside. We'll see how this goes. So I lean Patriots, not betting that with the quarterback uncertainty.
Yeah, I'm in the same spot as you. Although I think the fact that you could have Zappy laying a field goal is kind of insane. I think it's.
Yeah, what are we doing?
I think this is Lions or pass, and I think it's under or pass. But you combine those two things.
Oh, it's 3.5 now. I was seeing 3s. See, like at 3, you can make a case if it's Hoyer as a game manager. But you want to lay 3 points with Hoyer? There's better ways to spend your money.
No. So basically,
edible bouquet.
If it's Lions or pass, and if it's under or pass, that means if you're making a bet on this game, you're counting on the Lions defense. I need to see it first at this point. I got to stay away here. And
the fact is too that Swift and St. Brown still hurt. We don't know. I mean,
Swift is definitely not going to be back. It doesn't sound great for Brown.
No, that's a fact. They did it last week against a team that they could do it against. But we'll see if that's, it's a bigger step up.
Let's
move on
to a more interesting conversation because I am out of thoughts on Detroit and New England as franchises right now. The Niners, however, have bounced back from the brink of their season being lost. And they did it in emphatic fashion on Monday Night Football. And the entire commentary in the wake of that is the Niners are the best defense in football. They have a very, very, very talented defense.
And they're getting pieces back.
And their scheme is amazing, so I can't disagree with any of that. They go on the road now, and they play a Panthers team that is trying to lose. Maybe? I mean, I don't know what conclusions to draw. They're certainly not scheming an NFL approach on offense, at least. But you know what, man? You know whose heart that warms to see Baker Mayfield out there just absolutely sucking ass every week.
It warms your heart.
It warms my heart because fuck that guy and fuck the Panthers. Matt Rule looks like he is done with the NFL. The NFL looks like it's done with Matt Rule. I would expect that you probably see him get relieved of his duties were he to lose this game. The first coach fired market certainly implies that.
Yeah, it's ready to.
Here's the weird thing. 2 weird things I would like because I didn't bet this game. I don't have any intention to bet this game. Niners are coming off of 2 primetime games. Now they got to go on the road and play at the Panthers in a really meaningless game where they're huge favorites. Don't really love laying the points, especially because their offense still has huge questions in my mind. Here's what I'd like to understand better, Andy. Number one, what is going on with the look ahead between Niners Falcons? Because that is also 6.5. We expect that the Niners probably going to stay on the East Coast at the Greenbrier in between these games and be especially sharp for that Falcons
God damn it!
game.
You're stomping. Yeah, you're stomping on my thing. Yeah, if you want to bet the Niners minus 6.5,
do it next week.
Maybe do it next week.
But here's the thing: why is this 6.5 and that 6.5? There's no way Falcons and Panthers are equal.
I don't quite understand this. I don't know. Maybe Falcons. I mean, they did have some injuries. lost. I don't know if you can say like Cordarrelle Patterson's like the heartbeat of that team. He was a big part of it, but yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. This is a short week in a game, a travel spot that it's not a game you get up for after last week. That's why the total's incredibly low. Like, yeah. And it's like I posed a question to somebody a long time ago about baseball, and who bets baseball pretty seriously. I said, why don't you lay the run line on some of these? He's like, because teams have no, motivation to win by 2 if they're up by 1. Like what, insurance runs are nice, but they're not out there bunting guys across and like scratching for that run like they have to have it. It's the same thing here, like you don't have to win by 7 on the road if you're controlling this game with your defense the whole time. A 4-point lead feels like 14 for a big chunk of this game, it feels like. And yeah, it's a really, really bad matchup for the offensive line. Matt Rule is probably on his way out, but I'm not in the business of laying big numbers on the road on a short week. It's a tough ask.
Panthers defense has some players. Niners O-line has some questions. Niners could only score 3 offensive points in the second half of that game against.
I've never been able to say Cordarrelle right. He played for the Vikings too.
Cordarrelle Patterson.
Yeah, Cordarrelle. I give him a Ral.
All right. Well, anyway, I'm gonna hope that the Niners either lose outright or win ugly, and then I'm going to bet the opener on the Niners against the Falcons.
I have there's a prop you could take in this game.
What's that?
And it's plus money. Go bet Rule first coach fired. Like if this is an absolute shit kicking and they don't score, it might just be it. He's putting there's people that are sure of it now that he's put feelers out to college teams already.
Of course.
They are the worst yet. This is the worst team in the league.
Yeah.
I have them ranked 32nd.
Yes.
But it's hard to lay a big number on the road, especially. I mean, what would you make this? I don't have the Niners as a prolific offense with Jimmy.
No,
I'm at 6. I make this like 7.
7, okay, 6, 7.
It's still a road game.
I mean, the 6.5 is fair, considering the situation. So with that, keeping my finger on that one for as soon as we see a line pop, hoping that it's less than 6.5 for next week. Philly at Arizona, interesting market, interesting game. Everyone and their mother that handicapped Philly before the season, and this was the hottest team of any in the NFL. Would you agree? Market was not sleeping on this. We talked about it in August. When I was late to the party, in early August, I was late to the party on the Eagles. The win total had already moved. Their future prices had already moved. Everybody was expecting this Eagles team to be a factor this year. On top of that, they have an easy schedule, and they have looked nothing short of amazing. But they played a bunch of statuesque quarterbacks, and now they got to play a mobile in Kyler Murray. And I think even though the Cardinals are a train wreck of a franchise and they gave a bunch of guys money who suck this last offseason, they still have a Kyler Murray who is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, in today's NFL at least. And he does have a skill set that should do well against this type of very good but not great defense of the Eagles. It's a bad spot for the Eagles coming off of that home win against the Jaguars as well. They got to travel across the country. They got the Cowboys next week. Much more important game. And I think the fact that the look-ahead preseason here was Cardinals by 2.5, and now it's Eagles by 5.5, we are clearly looking at a situation where the Eagles are at the tippy top of their market price point, right? And the Eagles are at the tippy top of their price point, and the Cardinals are at the nadir of theirs. The Cardinals are still a couple of weeks away from getting some of their important pieces back, but they are a lot better than they were week 1 against the Chiefs. And I think the fact that the Chiefs went into that game as 5.5-point favorites is pretty tough for me to put this Eagles on that same pedestal, particularly considering the Cardinals are better now than they were then. So I think this game should be 3.5. I took the points with the Cardinals. It's ugly. It's gross. I feel like an old school sharp that gets their teeth kicked in because I'm trying to bet against the undefeated team after 4-0. Like, this is a pretty telltale, sort of old school way of, betting sides.
If you're the kind of guy who likes to tickle a money line on a dog of this is a good one too. It's a home one where not only that, but the variance of, you saw what Murray did in the second half of the Raiders game. If you get a full game of that, honestly, it stinks because I have this team as a slightly above average team, but there are slightly above average teams who have players like that who it's like, shit, this guy can beat. You could beat anybody in the league on the right situation if we have a full game of that kind of game. And they're getting a little healthier. They still don't have Nuke back, but starting to get some of the pieces back on offense. I'm worried that this team's probably absolutely live for a wild card spot. And honestly, maybe even if you get this win to keep up, like this, live to win the West.
Yeah,
everybody's live to win the West somehow, which is just nuts.
Yeah,
so, we thought the NFC East was going to be super competitive again. Apparently, it turned out to be the NFC West.
Yeah, again. So the Cardinals suck. I'm not going to debate. I'm not here to debate that. But sucky teams beat good teams sometimes, and that is entirely within the realm of possibility, considering that Kyler Murray is going to be the quarterback. Eagles they haven't faced very many, mobile quarterbacks. And until they show us that the defense is, like, if the defense keeps the Cardinals here to 14, 17-ish points, which is kind of what, in some places, it's basically the market expectation, I guess, is more like 28,
21.
28,
20.
If the Cardinals team total under hits here, then I'm going to have to upgrade the Eagles defense from good to elite. Right now, I think they're top 10, but I think a mobile quarterback can hang some points on them, and that'll be proven this week. We'll see, one way or the other. Not my favorite play, but 5.5.
No, I'm steering clear of this one.
Classic sell high, buy low. I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah. And honestly, if you're the kind of person who likes to do maybe round robin money line parlays with some dog prices, this is one I'd throw in.
Yeah, because
I'm actually more comfortable using this as a sneaky money line than just even taking the points. I feel like that if the Eagles defense is better than we think, I'm not 100% sure on that. They win by margin, and this spread is never an issue. But if it's not, Cardinals might win this game. It might come down right to the end.
Yeah, so the Cowboys-Rams, we'll move on to that. I don't have a side or a total here, but I will tell you that the Rams, every siren is going off that this is not it for them this year. It would be unbelievable and very, very NFL, middle of October NFL. Tell me if you haven't heard this story before. Everybody has overreacted to the last undefeated team, talking about how they're elite, putting him in the conversation with the Bills and the Chiefs, over their skis, kind of glowing about this amazing team. They suddenly lose to a team everybody has written off. Meanwhile, the Cowboys shock the world and win against the Rams because their defense is playing much better than anyone expected before the season. And next week's Eagles-Cowboys narrative is all about, oh man, did we anoint the Eagles as the best in the NFC too quickly? And now, how good are the Cowboys actually? These two teams are both 4-1. They're both 4-1, Andy.
This is
how many times have you heard this? I've heard it too many times.
We do this every year. I do want to mention too, really, really quick too as well. I did play Eagles team total first half over 13.5. They're like the world's best second quarter team. I don't think that's super signally. A lot of times teams score in the second quarter because they drove the length of the field in the first quarter. But they've been very good out of the gate, and I think this team total should be on the other side of 14. It is juicy. I did pay like minus 130 for it, but over 13.5 team total for the Eagles first half, I liked quite a bit.
I dig it. All right, Rams, Cowboys. I mentioned it. I can't really make the Rams favorites here. I don't really know what's going on with this team. McVay seems to...
I thought this number was going to be like 3. I'm like, you know what? I might bet the Rams minus 3, and then what is this?
4.5.
It's 5.5 some places.
5.5. Yeah. I mean, that was a very embarrassing performance by them in a primetime spot. Maybe that gets them rallied. Maybe they play with a little more pride, a little more urgency. But this isn't an easy test for them. They got a banged up offensive line. I mean, maybe Allen is back for them at center, which is good because their third string center was awful. Maybe their guard Edwards is back, who has been okay, but not great. It's still a bad offensive line, though. And Stafford behind a bad offensive line asked to throw the ball 50 times against the Cowboys defense that is schemed very well and has some elite players. Don't love it. Don't love it at all. And I think ultimately this Rams, being somewhat of a, they were lucky-ish last year. And on top of the, just sort of playing with house money and, coming off a championship and a little bit of a hangover, they weren't actually as good as they ultimately were perceived at the end of the season. All of that seems very real right now. And, we talked about in the preseason, they have 4 superstars. If those guys stay healthy, then they got a chance to run it back. And right now they only have 2 superstars. Aaron Donald and Cooper Kupp are playing up to their level. Jalen Ramsey and Matt Stafford are not. And no one outside of the kind of core 4 has taken a step beyond replacement level. I mean, honestly, some of the tackling, some of the coverage has been ridiculously bad.
The tackling against San Francisco was honestly the most disappointing. Like, I get it. Hey, the offensive line didn't hold up. All right, that was more than likely going to happen.
Yeah. Hey,
but
Andy, close. I'm gonna Andy, close your eyes. I'm gonna tell you about an offensive play for the Rams just happened. It did not go to Cooper Kupp.
Okay.
What was the outcome?
Higbee over the middle for 3 yards. He got hit immediately.
Okay, that's not bad. I was, any handoff has been an absolute atrocity.
Cam Akers hitting the backfield.
Cam Akers just lost 5 yards.
He broke the tackle. He only lost 1 yard.
He only lost 1 yard. Yes, like that's kind of like everything that's not Cooper Kupp centric with this offense looks absolutely useless. I don't know how they fix that. And Micah Parsons is that dude. He's going to be a problem for them in this game, just like Nick Bosa was for the Niners in the last game. I don't know what makes the Rams this type of favorite status in this one, and maybe I'll be wrong. I didn't play the Cowboys. I would have
played the Rams at 3. Like
why didn't I play the Cowboys?
I was getting ready. No, I'm at this point. It's Cowboys sort of pass. Like it's probably a decent spot. It's a tough game, but maybe this is finally the defense that's able to stop the Cooper Rush. So Cooper Rush versus Cooper Kupp. I don't have a strong opinion on continuing to. It feels like you're toying with fire if you say like, hey, Cooper Rush gets to 4-0 or Cooper Rush continues to play well. He's actually good though. Like I haven't seen. It's been really lucky. Like he's played some decent teams. But at the same time, it was kind of a bad spot for like the Bengals were in a bad spot to play them. And then the last 2 teams, it was like, well, of course Washington wasn't good on offense. They didn't have to do a ton. And then what was the other game? The other Cooper Rush game? Giants. Yeah. That was in New York, which is asking for, that's a tough thing, a divisional game on the road, but it's still kind of a bad team. And that's before Saquon got going. Yeah. So like he hasn't played the toughest of opponents, but it's all been half decent spots, or if it was a bad spot, it was a bad team. So he's a good backup, but this is a big ask. The Rams are not a bad team off 1 or 2 games. Yeah. They still have a bunch of superstars. That said, 5.5 is too much. I'm dangerously close to playing Cowboys like team total over.
Let's touch on this primetime game, and then we'll put a bow on this pod. The Bengals take on the Ravens. Both of these teams are 2-2. I think the Bengals should feel lucky to be here at 2-2, and the Ravens should be fucking furious that they're 2-2. Like, what was the stat going around today? The Ravens have been trailing for 16 seconds this season.
Yeah, the wrong 16 seconds.
Crazy. That's crazy. It's crazy to be 2-2 and to be leading, playing from ahead in every minute of your game so far is wild. That said, the Bengals could match up well against this Ravens defense and put some scoreboard pressure on them. The Ravens are a smart, analytically driven team, so I'm assuming that they are kind of in the know about the style of defense that frustrates Joe Burrow. I'm assuming. But Jamar Chase is still a problem in terms of speed against the secondary that has made lapses and has made mistakes and can be beat over the top. On the flip side, I think the Bengals defense is good and getting better. I will 100% acknowledge that any kind of optimism or solid grade you have for the Bengals defense this season is inflated because the quarterbacks they have faced have not been good. In fact, I think this is the first time that they're going to play a full game against a starting QB.
Yeah, I mean, second half Tua was something. And then, I mean, here's the point. Like, I almost played Bengals. I wish I would have gotten the hook, but man, like, in what world do we picture, like, God, I can't think of the coach's name. Zach Taylor changing the game plan, be like, oh, hey, you know how to beat this team? We're just going to take the top off like Miami did. We're going to score a shitload of points like Miami did in the second half. I just worry that it's going to be Joe Mixon, 23 carries for 28 yards. And you're so mad because you see, like, there's one or two plays that work and they just never go back to him again. It's going to drive me up a wall with I'll probably still end up with a Bengals ticket somehow. If it keeps going, I will tease the shit out of the Bengals. My God, but I'm going to get so mad at Zach Taylor if I have this ticket.
I'll be honest. I have a ticket on the Bengals. I got it at 3.5 minus 115 on Sunday.
I might just play him straight up.
Put a big old bet. I'm pot committed, big time with the Bengals right now, and I'm nervous. They should take a step forward this year. They should. They're a young team. Everybody's healthy. Like this is
like if the Bengals stop themselves by calling bad plays. This is a good point too from Sam Lipscomb. They did just kind of crush and I feel like it was a better defensive unit, despite the injuries really did start to catch up last year
part two. But
it's not that much different right now. And if they go with the game plan they used last week or last year. Yeah, they put up 40 points through the air, baby.
Yeah, so I'm cautiously optimistic that the Bengals get to their very, very favorable prior that I gave them before the season started.
Yeah,
I'm cautiously optimistic. If the Ravens are 2-3 after this game, boy oh boy, like they're going to be looking in the mirror for a long time because they're going to be like, how are we here? They're a better team than 2-3, and they're going to be a bet-on team through the middle of the season for me. I think the Ravens are. Lamar Jackson is still a very, very, very formidable matchup and nightmare for most teams, but not the Bengals because the Bengals have two elite safeties. So I think the Bengals can get it done. I think they win. I hope they win.
That's a good point from Fleabit Peanut Monkey. Joe Burr, he did miss a bunch of the preseason with the appendix stuff. Yeah. Maybe that's part of the reason we're seeing some of not only the poor play from him, but the hesitancy from Zach Taylor to use him heavily. This was kind of his preseason. So if he gets rolling,
Peanut Monkey is in my head. Like that is, I have been telling myself that every week. Like he missed a lot of the preseason. Don't overthink this. I think we go Falcons team total under for the secret pod play. What's your vote?
I can live with that. They're a little bit it's a sell high on that offense as well.
Banged up Pitts, London scheme, all of it is Bucks keep that team under 10.
Yep. All right.
Falcons team total under secret pod play.
I'm not sure what that team total is. I feel like I have Bet Online open right now.
If it's anything under 17.5, I'm good. I mean, anything over 17.5, I like the under.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you want a worse price? You're plum crazy purple, baby.
Under 17.5 for the Falcons. Let's go.
Are you going to dox yourself? Tell people what airport you're in?
I'm in Sacramento.
Because you're clearly in an airport. All right, I'm finding it now. It is 19.5. I will add that to my card right now. 19.5 minus 110. So not even extra juice on that. We were on Falcons under 19.5 for the secret. This has to get going because we had Colts over in the game. They scored 0. We're about to get off the schneid on these. We're back.
Yeah, we are.
Back in that New York groove.
All right, man.
So
I'm gonna go get on a plane. This was fantastic. Great job. Very efficient pod by us. Well
it was
played.
super efficient. Yeah, we'll be back tomorrow night. Are you going to be from like a hotel again?
We'll see. It depends if I catch
never
the
know.
serial killer or not.
Yeah, please don't.
Hot on this
Please
trail.
don't do that. Please don't die. I can't carry a halftime show by myself. I had to do it one time. So again, guys, appreciate you. Appreciate everybody. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. At least give a thumbs up. That's a bare minimum. If you learned anything or if you had fun in the chat, listening to the Jet Blues of the world and everyone else and Ahef's Suddy Down Under. I don't know if we've seen this guy a ton. It seems like a newer one. He was very, or she, I don't know. Could be a girl from Down Under. A lot. What's the opposite of a mate? Or is everybody a mate when you're down under?
Matilda.
A Matilda. There you go. But yeah, that Suddy Down Under's been all over it. This guy too, Fady.
Yeah.
Oh, it's got. Don't fade Fady. He's got some sharp takes. So we'll catch you guys Thursday. Have a good one.
Great pod, man. Killed it.
I thought we kind of nailed it. Papa Calls, long time JMC. I feel like this used to have a different name.
I love it. Yeah. I love it.
Sam Lipscomb, long time